Diona, bartender of the Cat's Tail. I charge a hefty fee for private events. Huh? You didn't come here for a drink? Then I accept your invitation, I suppose.
This is Diona. Now, I know what you're thinking. This isn't Child. We voted on Child. Okay, Child is here. He's right here. Okay? But I thought I would go a little bit off script this time and give you guys something that you guys have been wanting. One, it's Christmas. Two, we're about to hit 20,000 subs. And I want to give you guys something. And this is totally not a ploy for me to wait till 1.2 so that I can just get the Hydro artifacts, I swear. Also, just a shout out really quick. I did enable memberships on the channel. If you're that type of person that wants to support a content creator, feel free to. If not, there's no pressure. I'm also dropping some merch down below. Some of it has already been approved. If you actually click on the merch and go to the store, there's a couple of other items in there, not too much, and I'm still working out some kinks on merch. But anyways, so Diona is a cryo archer. She uses a bow, she is cryo element, and she's kind of like this weird healer, shielder, weird, I don't know. It's very odd that her combination sets up to be a bow user, but also a healer and a shielder. It's kind of an interesting little kit, and I think it's actually kind of fun to play in a lot of different ways. So I'm going to go ahead and put this up front. The new cryo artifact set is about to drop on 1.2 in like 48 hours. Like, it's literally 48 hours from me recording this video. So I do think there is a lot to be said about that. The reason that I'm doing Diona before I do Kaeya is simply because I don't think people are going to be building her as a DPS as much as Kaeya. So I don't think that that set will impact her nearly as much as Kaeya, but that set is going to slightly alter how you would build her sometimes. The main shtick of that set, though, is to help increase your crit rate. The thing about that is that as a Diona, unless you are just straight up doing just regular DPS, you're just doing white damage, you're just clicking or attacking, you're not doing aim shots or anything like that, you don't really need crit rate. If you're using the sniper method, which a lot of bow users are kind of like going towards, it feels like, if you're going that route, if that's the way that you play Diona, then you don't really need crit rate. You could just do full crit damage. If you are doing white damage and you are looking to do extra crit rate, then I think that set will help you. But until that set comes out and we can get our hands on it, that's just something that we'll have to put up on a shelf for now. So let's just go ahead and jump into our talents and let's see what she's got here. So our normal attack, oh my god, I can't read that. So our normal attack is going to perform up to 5 consecutive shots with a bow. A charged shot is an aim shot. At fully charged, it deals cryo damage, and plunging attack is a standard, just raining arrows from the sky kind of thing. Here you can kind of see how that breaks down. Of course, as a bow user, it is pretty lackluster. Now, since I do have Child in the party, it's raising it up one whole level. Next, we have our elemental skill called Icy Pulse. So this is kind of what makes Diona super unique. So fires an icy paw that deals cryo damage to opponents and forms a shield on hit. The damage absorption scales based on her max HP, and its duration scales off the number of icy paws that hit the target. So when you press it, it just fires off 2 icy paws really quickly. When you hold it though, she dashes back quickly before firing 5 icy paws, and the shield created by a hold attack will gain 75% damage absorption bonus. Remember what it said, it's based off of the number of icy paws that hit the target. It's not based off of the number that get fired. So also try to keep that in mind, that whenever you fire it, it does actually have to hit. If you do hold it, you get a lot more uptime on it. 1.9 per claw is what it is at level 2. Basically, that's up to 10 seconds, so that's decent. Just off of a quick press, that's, you know, what, 4 seconds? Almost 4 seconds. So kind of keep that in mind. There's like this little divide amongst people that play Diona, whether you should press, whether you should hold. I think it really comes down to, do you want your shield up longer or do you want more shields up? Really just depends. And the shield does have a 250 cryo damage bonus absorption, which will cause your active character to become affected by cryo, which is important at the point of formation for a short duration. The reason that that's important is because you can cleanse a little bit of elemental situations off of you, so that's actually pretty good. And we kind of touched on this, but here you can kind of see how this breaks down. The damage, the HP absorption, so 7.7% of max HP, which is also nice. Keep that in mind because we'll come back to how we build Diona is going to revolve around HP some, and then you can just kind of see how all that stuff breaks down. Next, we have our elemental burst, which is called Signature Mix. Tosses a special cold brew that deals AoE cryo damage and creates a drunken mist in an AoE. So the drunken mist deals continuous cryo damage to opponents within the AoE and continuously regenerates the HP of characters within that AoE. So this one, I have like a love-hate relationship with it. I love it because not only does it deal damage, but it also heals, which is very similar to like Jean or somebody like that. But the overall amount of damage and the amount of HP that it regenerates and how often it does those things is kind of like, eh. So here you can see how it breaks down with skill damage, continuous field damage, and the HP regeneration. 5.74% of max HP, so that's actually decent. Like we said, we were going to talk about HP later, but yeah, there we go. Next, we have Cat's Tail Secret Menu. Characters shielded by Icy Pulse have their movement speed increased by 10% and their stamina consumption decreased by 10%. So this isn't actually super bad. Movement speed is pretty decent, but stamina consumption decreased by 10% could be interesting if you're one of those players that uses charged attacks, or like if you run Kaching and you're using a ton of her charged attacks. I know there are like situations where her damage output is significantly higher in that department, but this could work out pretty nice. Next, we've got Drunkard's Farce. Opponents who enter the AoE of Signature Mix have 10% decreased attack for 15 seconds. That's cool. It allows you to, soak up a little bit more damage by reducing the amount of damage that they're going to deal, so that's actually kind of nice. And last, we have Complimentary Bar Food. When a perfect cooking is achieved on a dish with restorative effects, there is a 12% chance to obtain double the product. I always say that these are throwaways, but I've been using them a lot lately, I will say. So let's take a look at some constellations here. So I, for whatever reason, was lucky enough to get 2/6 here. First up, at level 1, we have a Lingering Flavor. Regenerates 15 energy for Diona after the effects of Signature Mix ends. That's actually pretty nice because her burst does cost quite a bit, 80 energy, so keep that in mind. At level 2, we do have Shaken, Not Purred. Increases Icy Pulse damage by 15% and increases the shield's damage absorption by 15%. And additionally, when Pulse hit their targets, creates a shield for the other nearby characters on the field with 50% of the Icy Pulse shield's damage absorption for 5 seconds. She's providing more shields, which is always good. I mean, I feel like in co-op, this is kind of where that's going to take place. But in general, this is pretty nice. At level 3, we have another round. So increases Signature Mix by 3. That's fine. At level 4, we have Wine Industry Slayer. Within the radius of Signature Mix, Diona's charge time for aim shot is reduced by 60%. So I think at C4 is kind of where her DPS potential goes up by quite a bit. She turns into more of like the sniper style play style, like Amber is kind of used to, or Ganyu whenever she comes out. That I feel like she is going to heavily favor. Diona kind of takes over in that department and starts to unlock a lot more DPS potential at C4. At level 5, we do have Double Shot on the Rocks, increases Icy Pulse by 3 levels. That's fine. And then last at C6, we do have Cat's Tail Closing Time. Characters within Signature Mix's radius will gain the following effects based on their HP amounts. So increases incoming healing bonus by 30% when HP falls below or is equal to 50%, and Element of Mastery increased by 200 when HP is above 50%. So this is one of my favorite constellations that I've read in a while, simply because it kind of has a dual purpose. Lower than 50%, you're going to get better healing. Now, I stated earlier that the healing on Signature Mix isn't amazing in terms of like how often it heals, but it can heal for a decent chunk. So increasing that by 30% is nice. But when you're above 50%, increasing your elemental mastery by 200 is pretty gnarly, because that means that you can be inside of that. It's going to be affecting enemies by cryo, and then you can apply melt, you can apply shatters, you can apply whatever you need and do just extra elemental damage on top of that, which is pretty nice. I think most people are going to be building her as a support. I think it makes more sense to me, at least, and I built her that way in my situation, so I feel like most people would go with that, so let's just go ahead and get that out of the way first. Plus, it's not super crazy. It's pretty simple. So, weapons as a support. essentially we are going for as much energy recharge as we possibly can right here. So things like the Sacrificial Bow or the Favonius Warbow will do you fine. Now, Favonius Warbow is technically a free-to-play weapon because you do get it out of the story mode. It's got energy recharge on it. It's a 4-star weapon. It's got decent scaling. It is the lowest attack value out of any of these, but you're really going for the energy recharge so you can get more elemental burst off more often. I think that's kind of the main whole point here, and that's why Sacrificial Bow is there. I think that it would be a little bit better than Favonius Warbow in more situations, simply because you can fire off the elemental skill more often. But you know, that's just, if you don't have Sacrificial Bow, don't worry. Favonius Warbow would be great. And then the Stringless could actually work pretty well here. It doesn't have energy recharge, so I definitely think that if you don't go with energy recharge in your bow, I highly would recommend it in your artifacts. If I don't say that later, definitely remember that. It does have elemental mastery on it, which just helps you do more elemental damage, but I think the main shtick here is that it's going to increase your skill damage and your burst damage by 24%. Now, when it comes to artifacts, there are a ton of different ways that you can build her, and there are a couple of different caveats to each set. So first and foremost, the way that I built her is based off of healing. So I wanted her to be as best of a healer as I could. So the Maiden's Beloved at a full 4-piece makes a ton of sense here. It's going to increase the potential of your burst, which is kind of what she is set up to do anyways, is heal and do a little bit of shielding. I think this is my preferred set out of any of these, but again, this is if you want to build Diona as more of a healer. Now, if you're going for Diona as more of a cryo applier, so that you can get off elemental damage and stuff like that, definitely consider a full 4-piece of the Noblesse Oblige here. Not only is it going to increase your burst damage by 20, but at a full 4-piece, it's going to increase the attack of your other party members by 20% for 12 seconds. And then that way, it just allows you to do extra damage and then throw in some elemental reactions and stuff like that. It works out pretty nice. Now, I think those are the two in-game sets that you would want to go with, but if you end up needing to, on your journey to get a full 4-piece of Noblesse or a full 4-piece of Maiden Beloved, you could go with a 2-piece of Scholar and a 2-piece of the Exile in the meantime. Simply what this will do is help you get a lot of energy recharge out of Diona and allow you to use her burst just more often. It costs 80, so it's kind of expensive. And then outside of that, you can kind of mix and match any of these that you want. They kind of work together as well. So like extra burst damage right here with a little bit of extra healing there. If you wanted to play one or the other, more as a healer versus more as a burst damager, you could simply, do either the Scholar or the Exile for the energy recharge, and then add in a 2-piece of Noblesse for the burst damage, or a 2-piece of the Maiden's Beloved for extra healing until you get the full 4 pieces. You can kind of mix and match them, which I think is super, super nice. Now, when it comes to your substats and how you want to try to prioritize stats on any of your pieces, as a support, HP, if you remember, is going to help scale everything up in terms of her kit. So the amount of healing that she does, the shielding, all that stuff is kind of scaled off of her max HP. So anywhere that you can get extra HP out of Diona is going to be great. After that, energy recharge is going to be super, super important because, simply put, the burst costs 80 energy to fire, which is a lot. Any kind of healing bonuses that you can get also do work out really good there. That just increases the effectiveness of her healing. And last but not least, you could go with cryo damage, especially if you're going with the Noblesse Oblige here. You could go with cryo damage on your goblet simply to do extra cryo damage on your burst. Now, for your talents, this is going to be a little bit swayed on depending which way you want to go. If you're going to do extra healing, definitely go with Signature Mix, hands down. If you're going to go with the Noblesse Oblige build, definitely go Signature Mix, hands down, top priority. If you're going for more of a shielding scenario, like even if you wanted to work in like retracing Blight or anything like that in your artifacts, you definitely could. You would want to go with Icy Pulse first. I think most people are going to prioritize Signature Mix first, but in those special occasions where you may want to go with something a little bit different, Icy Pulse would definitely fit just fine. And then last but not least, you can kind of focus on your normal attack. Now, as a DPS, I think that she gets quite a bit more buildable here. There's a lot of free-to-play options in here, and there's a lot of non-free-to-play options, but there are a couple of really nice options here. So in terms of our weapons, Amos' bow and Skyward Harp, hands down, are going to be like top choices here. Both of them are going to be DPS machines. If you have them, use them. If you don't worry. They're not free-to-play friendly. Blackcliff Warbow is also in this list. You'll notice that I put it kind of further down. The reason, simply, I think crit damage, and there's kind of like a cluster like Sharpshooter's Oath and Messenger are also right there in the same vicinity. All the crit damage weapons work really, really well here simply because you can play that sniper mode with Diona. If you are good at getting headshots and hitting weak points, then I think that build is probably going to be the most punishing one, simply just because you can just max out crit damage as much as possible. I've talked about the Blackcliff weapons before. After defeating an opponent, it's not very good, but anyways. Now, if you happen to end up getting Rust at some point through the gacha system, it is amazing here. It basically is going to help you do extra white damage like I was talking about. If you have Rust, you're probably not going to be doing a whole lot of charged attacks. Simply, it just decreases the damage by 10% anyways. The new artifact set would maybe actually do you really well there. You're going to increase your crit rate and possibly do more damage with Rust because you're going to be doing more normal attacks instead of charge shots. That is actually really, really nice. And then for some more free-to-play options, Prototype Crescent, Compound Bow, both craftable. They're both amazing. I'm probably going to be crafting Prototype Crescent in the near future, not for Diona, but I will be getting one simply because I want one on Ganyu right now. It's looking like the only thing that I can really use on her, but it kind of goes in the line of the weak point situation. So that new artifact set would make a whole lot of sense if you're going with that weapon. Compound Bow is going to be great. Both Sharpshooter's Oath and Messenger both have crit damage on them. You know, weak point on Sharpshooter's Oath, that's, you know, pretty big. And Messenger talks about charge attacks. As you can see, that new artifact set wouldn't make a whole lot of sense there. And last but not least, the Slingshot also could make some sense here. It's got crit rate on it, so take that for what you will. Now, for artifacts, again, this is going to be kind of like a mix and match situation for Diona. So what we could do, I think what makes the most sense is Wanderer's Troop. If you do a full 4-piece of this, increasing your charge attack damage by 35% because you're a bow user, makes a ton of sense. Just like you would build Amber in that charge shot situation, this makes sense. And then just pair that with a cryo cup and you're golden. Now, if you don't want to go the charge shot route, if you want to go with something different, you could actually go with a 2-piece of the Bloodstained Chivalry and then 2-piece of the Gladiator's Finale. That's going to increase your attack by 18% for the Gladiator, and it's going to increase physical damage by 25% for Bloodstain. And then on the cup, simply go with a physical damage cup, or if you do see yourself using your charge shots occasionally, you could do a cryo cup, but I think physical damage cup would make the most sense. Another thing that you could consider is the Retracing Belied. Of course, I don't have a full 4-piece set on that. It's going to be increasing your shield strength, and then when shielded, you're going to have increased normal and charge attack damage. So it could work out pretty well there. Now, when it comes to your stats and your substats and stuff like that, whenever you are building her as a DPS, always remember that your damage type, depending on which way you play her, either physical damage if you're just a spammer in the bow area, or cryo damage if you're a charge shot user, that stuff is probably going to take top priority when it comes to the stats. So on your goblet, you're going to want as much of that as you can. Depending on how you are playing them, again, if you're going with more of the white damage or just the regular attacks, then, crit rate, crit damage, of course, depending on, what your weapon looks like and stuff like that, make sure that you have the 1-to-2 ratio on that. But if you are going with a charge shot situation and you're going for more cryo damage and stuff like that, may want to consider just full crit damage so that you don't have to worry about the crit rate. You could just build straight into crit damage on that. So your circlet would just include either crit rate or crit damage, whichever one you go with. Energy recharge also makes some sense here so that you can keep proccing that elemental burst, just doing that kind of damage. If you do like to proc your burst as often as possible and you do dedicate this to a energy recharge piece, then you might want to consider cryo damage here as well. Just really depends on what you feel like your playstyle will get more benefit out of. And because, things scale off of HP, just make sure that your HP is not forgotten in any of the artifacts or substats. Now with your talents as a DPS, I typically, normal attack and, this whole thing makes tons of sense to go with first, simply because you're going to be using that the most often. After that, it really depends on which artifact set you feel like you would be getting the most benefit out of. Do you feel like you want extra cryo damage, stuff like that? Honestly, I would feel like Icy Pulse would make more sense to go with first, and then, make Signature Mix my last priority, but both of these can be pretty much leveled up very close together. I would just say Icy Paw takes precedence 51% of the time for me. And just remember, like we were talking about earlier on Constellations, at C4 is where the DPS is really going to help open her up, especially as a charge shot user. She's going to be really, really good with that. Let's go use Diona for a couple of things. So currently, I was talking about what I am running on her. I got the full 4-piece Maiden Beloved with a HP. This is technically my Barbara set, but it's just none of them are like leveled up at all except for the flower and the goblet because it has HP on it. But basically we're rocking healing bonus and HP, and some attack with HP substat. So I literally just want as much HP as I can on her so that we can get as much healing. Okay. Oh, well, I was going to say let's talk about this Sensen before we go into it. But essentially, we're just going to take on this guy or girl. And as you can see, aim shot. That was embarrassing. All right, so cryo damage on the fully charged aim shot. You can see if we press Icy Paws, it just kind of throws it out. You can see we get our shield, which is just looking like a cat, which is super cool. That's what it looks like when we hold it. Very, very nice. And our elemental burst tosses out that potion. Very, very cool. Now, as you see, when we're in this, we are getting heals, and they are affected by the cryo there. And we can go back to doing some Icy Paws. Very nice. Now, remember, as a support, I'm not looking to do tons of damage. And we can hit this. Yep. And we have a pretty decent shield. Now, the cooldown does increase if you hold your elemental skill, which is kind of a bummer, but it just kind of goes along with the territory. Let's go ahead and weak point. Yep. And by the way, I'm using Favonius Warbow simply because I already had it. So let's do this charge shot. Or, yep, that was not a charge shot. That was a plunging attack. But yeah, you can kind of see how Diona really just helps set up. There's something to be said about like team comps that you can use retracing Belied. I know when we talk about Child, there's going to be some people that swear by retracing Belied and how it is like definitely the best set to go with. There is some math behind that does make that pretty true. But anyways, I think Diona can help with that because of the ability to control the amount of time that's on the shield is pretty nice. And I'm just going to go ahead and kill this thing because that's pretty much all we need to talk about with Diona. But her charge or her normal attacks are kind of slow, so keep that in mind. And remember that the numbers on them aren't super high, so just be wary of that. If you are using her, before C4 or anything like that, then I don't know. I just feel like her main carry would kind of be lackluster, personally. But anyways, that's pretty much Diona, guys. She is a so when she first came out, I was pretty into building her, and then I got her up to like level 50 or something like that, and I was using her kind of like on the daily, but I haven't used her a whole lot lately simply because I've been trying to build other characters. But she's fun to play, I think. And I think the variety in her kit with shields, healing, cryo damage, stuff like that, simply increasing, like with the elemental resonance of having her and Chongyun on this team, sets me up to have, extra crit rate, stuff like that. It's just kind of nice. But I think that overall she's a very, very strong addition to any team if you build her right. But that's kind of the point with everyone, right? So anyways, thank you guys for hanging out. I'm headed to Dragonspine very shortly. See you there. Major shout out to Cherry Blue, who is a YouTube member.